Welcome to the Matchbook Podcast, where one idea can spark the idea of many. Today we have a guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but the topic today is near-death experiences, and we're going to talk about his near-death experiences, what he experienced, and what he brought back, and we're just going to go from there. So I just like to keep this authentic. How you doing today? You want to introduce yourself?
Great, man. I'm David Williamson, David A. Williamson. I'm originally from a small town in North Carolina called Yanceyville.
Okay.
Was an Army brat, so moved around a lot. Got a lot of different perspectives from different cultures, and I think that all of that has shaped, who I am, to this day. But starting off in Yanceyville, very simple living. I was like a Huckleberry Finn type life, like fishing in creeks and playing in the woods and all that type of stuff. So I really had to me, it was up until I started having these weird spiritual experiences, and I drowned at age 6. So up until that point, everything is pretty perfect. I was a happy child, yeah. And but once I started having a bunch of mystical experiences and realized that I was a little bit different than most of the people that were around me, things just got, bad for me. I just started disconnecting from this reality. So me and you talked. I knew you for almost a year now. Yeah.
I never met you in person. It's my first time meeting you. And I just wanted to give people an idea of how I came about, you and your story. I had a lot of people who passed away since I was younger, and my best friend recently passed away. So I just went exploring on the internet, looking for answers, just saying like, dang, I wonder if these people I love still exist, right? And I came across different videos. I came across yours, and your story really stood out to me. We talked a lot, but I purposely didn't want to talk too much about this until we got here, because I like to keep the experience authentic. Yeah. And I don't like to be like hearing something and act like I'm my first time hearing it, like, oh, wow, really? So I don't really know much other than what I saw in the video, which wasn't a lot. And we're going to talk about like that, but also more stuff. So I just wanted to, put that out there.
Yeah, because I don't even think I talked about drowning at age 6 in that video that went viral. Yeah.
So we're going to start off. I just want you to tell people, your experiences, your mystical experiences, your near-death experiences, and what that was like. And then from there, I'll ask some questions and stuff like that. Okay. So just like let people know what happened. If you want to start there, and then if you want to talk about the more recent one.
Yeah,
let people know.
I'll start. The childhood. I was always I was born with people. They say gifts.
Some sixth sense.
Yeah, I kind of understood what people were thinking and feeling as a child. I didn't like it, because I didn't have any filter. So if I heard it or felt it, I would say it. And it sometimes created tension, in rooms and with adults even,
because I'm saying crazy or something.
Yeah, because I'm saying stuff that a child ain't supposed to even understand how to say. Okay, it's about their experiences. It's about stuff that they're feeling. And I'm 5 years old and I'm saying what they're feeling or correcting an idea that they said that I knew wasn't true.
Oh, wow.
And I'm, it gets you kind of put out of the room, like, get out of here, son. You're saying all making people uncomfortable, But my mom seemed to know how to handle me. And I think that it was a blessing to be born to a woman like my mother, because she didn't judge me. She just loved me, and all of the weird stuff, she didn't really exaggerate it or make put a whole lot of emphasis on it. She was just like, that's David, old people say stuff like, they used to say stuff like, he's the one. And what they meant is, because I grew up in a Christian environment, is that he's going to be a preacher. He's going to be a minister.
Yeah.
That I had some kind of spiritual gift or whatever. But that wasn't really, I studied all of that. Even as a child, I started getting books on spirituality, Christianity, every religion I was already starting to look into by the time I was an early teen. And nothing really fit me, But, and it was because the experiences that I had just all of it didn't jive with what I was experiencing. So at age 6, I went to this summer camp. And I jumped in. I watched the kids it was like a lake. I watched them all in the lake, swimming and having fun. I couldn't swim, but my assumption was they couldn't swim either. But they had the life jackets on, so they would,
so they was cool. Like everything was cool.
So I put a life jacket on myself without any help from a counselor. And didn't know what I was doing. I ran and I jumped high, into the water. And as soon as I hit the water, the life jacket came off and I was going straight down. And I looked up and saw the life jacket sitting at the top of the water. And I'm like, that's not how this is supposed to work. you know? So as I'm going down, I'm just going down fast. And as I'm going down, I realized that I'm going to run out of breath soon. Everything was calm. I was calm the whole time though. But when I ran out of breath, I kind of blacked out. And this voice said, if you can touch the bottom, you can push yourself back up. And I said in response to that voice, it doesn't seem like I'm going to touch the bottom. I'm just going down. And as soon as I said that, I started floating back up instantly.
Did you ever touch the bottom?
Never touched the bottom. It felt like I was going down forever. But I think I had already passed out. So it was like at that point, it was a different kind of experience.
What did the voice say again?
If you can touch the bottom, you can push yourself back up.
Do you think that's a metaphor? And
I think so. Sometimes, yeah. I think I think it was literal in that moment, but I also think that it does have metaphorical value because I spent a lot of times in my own mind at the bottom, and at some point I realized that there's nowhere. I remember saying this to myself: "There's nowhere else to go but
that's
up."
why I asked you that because I heard that concept too about rock bottom. It's like once you're there, the only way to go is up.
It's up. Yeah. But as I'm floating up, I slowly start seeing light coming through the top. I guess I came back conscious because I took my attention up and I started seeing light coming through the top of the water because before it was pitch black. And then I saw a splash and they had put a pole in the water to get me out. But I didn't immediately, I wasn't panicked still because this voice was so calming, and the whole process was just really peaceful. So I didn't immediately reach for the pole. I watched the splash. And the ripples radiating from that splash was
beautiful. At this moment, do you remember breathing? Because I'm thinking at this point,
I'm gonna explain something that because I didn't realize this was a drowning. I didn't realize this was anything that I should have integrated as a trauma or anything like that because it wasn't traumatic for me. But but once I saw this pole and the splash, that captivated me, and that it's like a circle and a dot. But it was radiating, and that meant so much to me. Even I didn't know what it meant then, but I couldn't stop staring at it before I reached and grabbed the pole. But as an adult, that means a lot to me. That circle and the dot radiating. But when I came out, there was no resuscitation, and I think I coughed a couple times, and I sat at the edge of the dock.
Yeah.
And I asked my brother. This is maybe 2 years ago now, because the memory just kept popping back up in my head. And I asked him. I said, did I drown at that summer camp? Were you there? He said, yeah, I was right on the dock. I said, well, how long was I under the water? And he said, no less than 3 or 4 minutes. And I know I couldn't hold my breath for 3 or 4 minutes. Not even a minute and a half or so at that time. So I knew something weird had happened then.
Yeah.
And he had to confirm it for me because from my memory, I just turned it into I jumped in the water and came back up type thing. It was no trauma attached to that memory for me because it wasn't traumatic for me. The only thing that was traumatic was when I came out of the water, the people were gathered behind me. All of them were panicking. People were passing out, screaming and crying because they thought I was dead.
Oh.
And I turned around and I looked and I saw all of that. And then I saw people running towards me. And that made me anxious. So I cried when I saw all of the other people crying, at 6 years old. But the experience itself was perfect. And then even what happened after that even solidified it to me as a good memory because all of the kids that witnessed it, they just decided instead of going out in the deeper area, they just came over and played in the shallow area with me.
Like, I ain't trying.
Yeah, exactly. So we had fun after that. So for me, none of that experience was negative, but it changed afterwards. Afterwards, I started having these visions of the future for one, and it was never good. At age 6, the way I described it was human roadkill, because I used to hate seeing dead animals on the sides of the road.
Yeah.
And it bothered me that nobody else, people be talking and listen to the music or whatever, and we pass a dead animal, and I'm like, y'all ain't gonna even acknowledge this animal is dead,
Was it bad stuff in the future for you or for like the world or humanity?
It felt like America. It was what I saw in America as a child. It was just dead bodies on both sides of the road to the point where people had gotten used to it. And they were the same way that I was bothered by them not acknowledging the dead animals.
Yeah.
I was even more shocked that they didn't acknowledge dead human beings on both sides of the road. These visions kept, I kept having these visions from age 6 to probably about maybe 8, not maybe it was 6, maybe about a year actually, because when I came back to the States, because we had moved to Germany, my father again was in the Army, and so some of the anxiety of being in Germany could have caused some of this stuff, but I was also having visions of being in Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the Holocaust, the nuclear Holocaust. Yeah. And I could see the buildings. I could hear screaming. I saw the smoke, the flames, the fire. And my mom would tell me that when I would go into that state, because for me, I was there. She said my body would be stiff and I would just be repeating over and over, I don't want to die, 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 And then I would come out of it. But she said there was nothing when I was in that state that she could do to console me. She said my heart would be beating out of my chest. And she thought that I was, like, when she felt my heart, she said it was like she thought that I was going to have a heart attack because my heart was beating so hard and crazy when I would have those visions. But those things changed my personality, seeing the death in that vision from Hiroshima and seeing the death for what I felt like was the future.
What do you feel like that was for you when you seen those like Holocaust stuff? Like, what do you take that as now?
Well, it made me deeply empathic for all kinds of people. It made me hate how violent society was becoming. It made me hate violence in general. It made me afraid about nuclear wars and nuclear bombs, and I was deeply interested in it to the point where I started studying alternatives to uranium. By the time I was like 12, 13 years old, I was like, we could have used thorium. Thorium is safer. We could use it for energy. And I wasn't thinking about bombs. I was more like, thorium is a safer alternative to uranium. And it has a fraction of the half-life. Like, I'm thinking about this stuff at age 12 and 13 because of these visions. And I had this total distrust for governments because I assumed that they were going to use these bombs again. And they had already kind of messed me up from that vision, that memory. And so I kind of had checked out like that. Though that first drowning, it and the visions and stuff that it gave me, and it is a deeper level of empathy, I think, too, because I started just feeling everything and everybody at a much more intense level. I checked out and I was pretty much angry and depressed pretty much my whole life. And I had already been seeing the KKK. I'm from a small town in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So I seen the KKK march up and down the street multiple times. So the anger, I had anger from that. I had confusion and anger and fear and anxiety about the future from what I was seeing in these visions after I drowned. My personality just became, I just closed off. I didn't like anybody. I didn't really try to get close to people. I think my assumption was this bomb's going to drop or whatever this vision, however we got to all of that death, that's going to happen at any point. And I'm not going to.
So all that don't matter.
It don't matter, So I just stopped really having goals in life. I was always really smart. So I was always able to do the bare minimum and be on the honor roll. I had like a photographic memory. I was able to do next to nothing and always shine, So I got scholarships to college for football, scholarships to college for academics. And so I was always able to keep moving forward through society as if I was a well-adjusted person.
Yeah, for sure.
And
but
I wasn't.
You wasn't. I
wasn't. Yeah.
I can relate to that because as a kid, seeing a lot of things I seen, I just kept it moving like it was okay. But inside, I was at 12 years old reading books like Nostradamus and the Da Vinci Code before the movie came out. Because it was things that I was experiencing that made me want to search for more. Ultimately, what led us here to this table today, throughout my life. I wanted to ask you, I hear you talk about the hate, right? And I hear you talk about the state of mind you was in. Can you tell me how that started to snowball up into the point of it affecting your health?
Yeah.
And, your experience.
Yeah. Man, I hated everybody, but I hated white people because I blamed them for all of the strife in the world. It was extreme. It didn't even make sense. Like my blood pressure would go up when I entered rooms with white people. It was bad, but it all came from a childhood experience and narratives and stories that I kept telling myself and confirmation bias. Once you decide that you want to feel a certain way about people,
that's how, and it's the opposite for like, just use an example, racist white people. Like once they taught certain things about black people, they get confirmation misstatement.
Exactly.
And that goes on for every other
Exactly.
concept too.
Yeah. So it just my world just became smaller and smaller and smaller through hating everybody. I hated black people because I hated how we didn't fight, in my opinion, hard enough to change things for us in this circumstance. So I hated everybody. I hated people who gave you advice like, just put your head down, work hard, and good things will happen. Like, no, we need to change something. Y'all need to do something. Y'all been giving us this.
How did you feel about black people as far as like where we are today? I mean, I don't know where you were in that timeline, but as far as like black on black violence, you know, minority violence, you know, with thinking about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all the stuff that we were trying to build, and then ultimately shooting each other. Like, was that a part of your head too? Like,
well, the way that I looked at that was part of a narrative to because I think it was like 98% of black homicides are committed by other black people. But I think it's like 96% of white homicides are committed by other white people.
Yeah. So
there's really no such thing as black on black crime.
I see what you're saying.
We kill where you
live.
Yeah, you kill where you live.
And that's
Dick Gregory said that.
That's what I was getting to, because I was like, you know, that's like a seed that's planted. You know what I mean? So
But all those narratives contributed to my anger and contributed to me hating the story that was being told about black people and blaming white people for that story. You know, so it just, all of that anger snowballed. My blood pressure was up. I had digestive issues. And I never made a connection between my thoughts, my disposition, having any contribution to any of the health stuff I was experiencing.
So just to make it clear for people, you know, you're correlating your state of mind with your actual physical health.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I was, because of this constant anxiety, anger, depression, sadness, misery. I was in misery, man. My digestive system had been messed up for a long time. Like extreme pain. Like it ultimately turned out that I had 2 stones in my gallbladder that were like the size of ping pong balls.
How do you connect that? Like, for somebody that don't understand what you're saying, like, how do you connect that anxiety to an actual physical illness? Somebody might say, hey, you was going to have that anyway. So what's your theory on how that state of mind actually caused that physical?
Yeah, I'm starting to read a lot more since my NDE and coming back after the second NDE, wanting to understand how the body and the brain works. You know, our mind controls it all. Our mind increases the probability or the likelihood of us getting sick tenfold. Like, they've done studies on, they did a study on these, I think it was rabbits. They were feeding both of them extremely just not good food, high cholesterol food, toxic food. And but one group, they picked them up and held them while they fed them. And the other group, they just threw the food into the pens. The animals that they threw the food into the pens got extremely sick. The ones who were receiving compassion, love while they were being fed, they didn't really get sick, even though they were being fed the same diet. So your disposition.
So what about the rabbits? Was it the care, their state of mind?
The care, the state of mind, not being in an anxious environment. Yeah.
And also like not knowing when they're going to. I seen a study like that with plants. They had one plant. They all had the same, I think they were growing them in the same like soil, but they were like saying positive words like I love you and all that to this one plant. And they were saying hateful words to another plant. Yeah. And then in 30 days, I mean, even less than 30 days, that plant, they were saying hateful things to die. Yeah. And the other one lived longer.
I saw that too.
So you're saying that these vibrations, whether it's somebody stressing at work, relationships, thoughts about themselves, these things actually words, energy affects
your physical health.
Yeah. So I just wanted people to understand that, because people may hear you and say, oh, that's him. And I want them to relate that to like, oh, well, when I'm stressed out at work or school.
I was an athlete. Yeah. I grew up in a town where we didn't go out to eat. We ate home cooked food. So my physical makeup growing up was good. Like, I didn't have a lot of health issues at all. But I still killed myself with my thoughts, with my emotional state.
And that's the point I wanted to make, the thoughts. The words, the state of mind, and just wanted to put that out there. So you continue. Tell me about like how it got to the point where your health deteriorated.
Yeah. So the stones really, you know, that the pain that I was experiencing with the stones was extreme. So once I one last time,
what stones? Kidney stones?
Gallbladder stones.
Gallbladder stones.
Yeah. And oh, when they get caught in the neck of your gallbladder, the pain is like,
Yeah, I heard my sister
oh my
before she
goodness.
passed, she had to get her gallbladder took out.
Yeah, I would just hit the floor and just be screaming, blood pressure shoot
I
through the
had
roof.
kidney stones. Them
Yeah,
stones was
no, I heard that was
crazy.
crazy too.
Crazy twice.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna die. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
but the last time that the stone, it seemed like it got caught in the neck. Normally it would be like an hour, maybe 2 hours of just nonstop pain, and I had gotten so used to pain that I somehow normalized it. And be like, all right, it'll go away. But the last time that it happened, it was like 7 hours straight, and I was like, okay, I can't take this anymore. I went to the emergency room, and they immediately knew. You know, they like, I told them where it was hurting. They said, oh, it's your gallbladder, and the pain that you're describing, like we're gonna probably have to remove it. It's irritated to that point. And I was upset that they gave me that diagnosis without doing any tests.
Yeah, like, oh, this was wrong with you.
Yeah, y'all gonna cut. You think I'm gonna let you cut me open just because I came in here screaming? You know, you got to figure something out. You got to do something. Do your job. And it turned out after she did the test, you know, the lady was a professional. Like she knew. She knew. Yeah, but she did the test and like, yeah, your gallbladder, you got 2 stones. Like it was bad. And so after the stones, you know, that pain was gone, but I still had a bunch of physical pain in my back and neck and from playing football. And so I was always trying to figure out how to get this pain to go away. And I didn't realize that inflammation, you know, your thoughts, inflame your body. Inflammation is the breeding ground for pain, you know.
They say what happens above happens below.
That's it.
And I think metaphorically what happens up here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happened is as I'm taking these herbs to reduce physical pain, the inflammation, it seems like, because there are some depressed drugs for depression that focus on creating a less inflamed environment for your brain.
Yeah.
So I think I was taking so many herbs to help with the pain that it changed my thoughts, you know. But I still was stuck in the anger, depression. I wasn't doing anything different. So, and this is where you got to do something different in order to think different, to feel different, you know, and I wasn't doing anything different. So about 2-3 years after the gallbladder was removed, I was sitting with some friends just talking, and I could feel it was one of those super moons. I think they call it a blood blue moon.
Yeah.
And I've been hospitalized no less than 3 times, and it all coincide with these super moons. So now I pay attention to super moons.
Oh, it was correlation to that?
Yeah.
Did you think it was a coincidence?
Initially, I didn't make any connection until the 3rd time I got hospitalized, and it was a super moon. And I was like,
yeah, it can't be a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. Yeah, and then I shared that piece of the story that these things, my body seems to really respond to these super moons, especially when I was not healthy. You know, now it's not as bad. Like I end up staying up all night, almost every super moon when I can't go to sleep. But it's not the physical pain and the extremes that I was experiencing before. But I shared that my heart valve ripped during a super moon, and like 4 different people.
How'd that happen?
I had a birth defect in my heart. I had a bicuspid valve, which is basically my heart valve was divided in half instead of having 3 flaps that open up. Mine was opening like you know, and it barely opened. So my heart always beat way harder than everybody else, to the point where you could see, like if I put my hand out, you could see my hand shake with my heartbeat. That's how hard it used to be. But so that valve with the hypertension, anger, you know, all that stuff.
So you're saying, like, just like they say, certain states of mind can activate genes, right? Like if you got diabetes in your family and you're not physically or mentally right, it can activate the gene.
Yeah.
Do you think like the hate, everything you was feeling kind of like activated or like irritated that condition?
Yeah. There are people who have these bicuspid valves who live normal lives and never have any issue with it. But having a valve that's compromised and then being angry and depressed and miserable and having hypertension as a result of all of this stuff, that's a recipe for disaster. So like with that heart condition, I should have as I got older anyway, been more aware of how my disposition could affect my health. But you just don't intuitively always make those, connections until you have an experience that makes you make those connections.
For real. So just take us through the steps. So like what happened when it,
Yeah, so the valve ripped on February 1st, 2017. And 7 days later, February 7th, I had a heart attack. And I was at work, leaving work, and I'm stepping off the curb to go to my car. I could feel, because when the valve ripped, it only hurt in my back and in my shoulder. Like I never felt anything in my chest, so I didn't immediately say, okay, my heart just did something,
Yeah.
But 7 days later, I felt a sting in my chest, and I started losing my breath. And so I'm sitting in my car trying to decide, am I going to dial 911 now? Am I going to go home? Or, because I'm still functioning, I'm still thinking, I'm clear. And so I said, I'm going to go home. So I drive home. I'm still, feeling the sting, and I'm losing my breath a little bit, but not so much. I get home, and I'm like, maybe I just need to eat something.
Shit, do you think they say a lot of black men don't take care of themselves?
We don't, bro.
Like,
a lot of us don't.
I must be different because I would have went straight to the hospital.
You got to be. That's what I tell people.
I went
now.
to the hospital. I had a heart pain. I went to the hospital, and it wasn't nothing but gas. They had the EKG and all of that.
Yeah.
And I had to pay $500 emergency, emergency room fee.
But the peace of mind you get knowing that you're not dying.
Because if I didn't, though,
exactly,
that would have been crazy. So you went home.
Yeah, I made a sandwich and sat and I ate the sandwich, and then I was like, okay, I'm still feeling bad. So my son's mother, she works from home, so I called up to her, Trish, and I said, I need to go to the emergency room. I was like, I think I'm having a heart attack, and or something's going on with my heart. And so we're in the car, and that's when I'm really losing my breath. I'm having to take deep breaths to just stay conscious,
You're not driving though, right?
No, I'm in the passenger seat. Yeah, and so when I get to the emergency room, we walking up. I'm kind of leaning on Trish because I feel like I'm about to pass out. We get to the window, and the guy's asking me to sign a bunch of papers, and I'm like,
I hate when that happens. I had a kidney stone. I'm sitting there talking so what's your insurance? I'm sliding on the chair like, yo, can you come on? So you in that condition, and they try and talk to you like you're regular.
Dude out, bro.
Yeah,
I cussed him out so crazy. And then after I had the experience, I went in and had the experience and came back out. I made sure I apologized to him, because after that I was different. Like I don't like to make people feel things that I know are unhealthy, for them to feel, I don't like to trigger people's nervous systems in any way. I like to keep people calm, and because that's what had me messed up, is my nervous system was constantly triggered. Thoughts, narratives, stories were always keeping me in a triggered state. And if you do that to other people, knowing what it did to you, then you're not being, to me, a good person at all.
Yeah.
So I know how being angry and triggered and uncomfortable, ultimately, how it affected my health and my life. So I never want to trigger people. I never want to have people thinking about things that they ordinarily wouldn't think about.
Extinguish Entertainment. It has to be fire to put it out. Book your photography now. Portraits, events, proms, weddings, and more. Book on extinguishent.com.
Yeah, like they leave that situation and they are home ruminating like, I would have said this, or I should have did this.
Yeah.
And now, it's residual trauma now.
Yeah, I don't like doing that to people. So, but what I did prior to this experience is I shared a bunch of traumatizing, triggering information and trying to get people as angry as I was so that maybe some action could happen, Yeah. And that's not the way. You do what you need to do in your life. Fix problems in your community. Fix problems around you.
Yeah, you be the change you want to see. You don't try to force stuff on people.
That's it. That's how I see it now. But after I cussed this guy out, the doors opened for a back room, and they come out with a gurney. So I guess he had already called for the gurney. I just did not want to hear these questions about insurance and signing papers and stuff. So I got with him pretty rough. But I would say less than 20 seconds after they put me on the gurney, I was already gone, bro. I remember laying on the gurney, and they were pushing me into the area where they were going to be defibrillating me, working on me and all this stuff. But I could see that door, and then I blacked out. But right before I blacked out, I remember I rolled over kind of on my left. I've always slept on my left side. And that's why I got the pinched nerve now. That's why I was dealing with it last night. So I can't sleep on my left side no more. But so I rolled over on my left side, and the last thought that I had was, this is going to be some beautiful sleep. And I was gone. but I could see the doors prior to me closing my eyes where they were going to be working. And I bring this up because people say, oh, it was just an hallucination. But I didn't see the room that they were going to be working on me in before I passed out. I saw it after I left my body. Yeah. And when I came back, everything was situated the way it was when I left my body and saw it. So I didn't see it before I passed out. I saw it after I left my body. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So when people say it's an hallucination, I'm like, well, what data did my brain get?
To like be able to tell me the layout of the room that I never
exactly,
been in. Yeah.
Exactly. I was already passed out. So once they pushed me through the door, I remember I was still seeing blackness. But where people were, they were like specks of light, almost like a nighttime sky, you know. And when I left my body, which was maybe less than a few seconds after they pushed me through those doors, there were people where those dots were. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay, that was the energy, I guess, of the people. And I'm just thinking these things like, okay, that's where the people were. And then I'm above and I'm like, so this is how it happens. And these are all those internal things that I'm saying to myself. And then I'm looking around and I'm making note of the fact that I've never felt this good in my life. Like it felt perfect. I felt clear. I knew I was dead. I knew that the body was dead, but I didn't accept it. Like I was dead.
So you as David still felt like David?
Nah, I felt perfect. I felt like in a way that David never felt in his life. You know?
Okay. So I'm trying to make the
distinction.
But I was
still had an association with the body.
Okay.
Like I knew that was the body. The phrase that I heard was, he's dead, you used to be there.
Okay.
And I said, then it said his mind, body, and his ego is dead. And then I said, well, what am I now? What remains? And the words flooded in all at the same time. And it was light, awareness, consciousness, spirit, soul. I don't know if love was in there at that point, but
so you wasn't David from South Carolina no more. You wasn't a black man no more. You wasn't such and such feet tall no more. You wasn't angry.
Nope, none of that. None of the identity stuff was present. I was an orb of light. Is what I was, and I saw that later. But
did you feel like yourself, or you felt like something different than yourself?
I felt.
When I say that, I mean like, do you feel like yourself in the sense of I'm still my awareness, like the same awareness that's here today? Like, I guess
no,
okay,
because I think the memories are stored in the body, mind, ego. Once the body, mind, ego stops working, the further away you are from that anchor, that body, mind, ego, that as an anchor, you lose the memories, you lose and people describe going through like their
the reviews,
the life reviews.
Okay.
For me, what it felt like was the life review is just the final moment where you have an opportunity to feel the things that deeply impacted you in your life, where your attention was held the deepest, and let it go. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that the life review, my personal opinion, and this, I don't have a philosophy or a religion about it, but I think that our attention creates these experiences. What we put our attention on in this life, if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, you're going to see some of that iconography as you leave this life. But as a soul, you do not need human religion. As a soul, you don't. You are in the story now.
Yeah.
You know, whereas the religions are the story presented to us with mind, body, ego, so that we can understand.
So we can comprehend it.
Exactly.
But once you separate from it, there's no need to comprehend because you are it. You are the spirit.
Yeah. So
I say religions are all signs pointing at the same direction.
I do too. I used to be pretty disrespectful, you know, at different points in my life about people who are deeply religious. And now it's just study it, learn it, like really learn it. It's not, to me, it's our ancestors left us breadcrumbs to try to figure out this reality. And every religion has important breadcrumbs.
For real.
And it's not...
depending on your culture.
Exactly.
Your state of mind. But what fits you, right?
Yeah.
So you going through that room, you see these specks of light, which you take as energy from people.
Yeah.
You look down at your body.
Yeah.
Okay, so continue.
Yeah, I see a woman in the back of the room holding her face like this because she's like sad that I'm dying. And I could feel her energy. I could feel her compassion. I could feel her concern. And I was trying to communicate with her, but she couldn't see me.
What was you saying? You were saying, "Yo, Izzo, come
this
here."
This is beautiful. I was like, "This is beautiful."
Oh, you trying? Oh, you wasn't like yelling in fear or nothing like that.
No,
okay,
I was like,
cool.
"You shouldn't be upset that I'm."
Oh, you was like trying to like console her. Okay, cool.
Because she was extremely distraught. Like I mean, like she wasn't even moving. Like she was just standing there, like shocked. But I could feel everything, that she was feeling, and I kept going straight to her, and while I was out of my body, I kept going straight to her, trying to talk to her, like this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like that body is dead.
Oh, so you did, and you talking to her like, "Hey, I'm trying to give you game on what it's like to pass away and console you."
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to calm her down and make her understand that death was beautiful. Like this was the most beautiful thing. Honestly, this was the most beautiful thing that ever had happened to me. The clarity, the peace.
What about your family?
The pain, the thought that I had about my son, but prior to my and my son's mother, was that I didn't spend enough time with him, and that bothered me. And I think that's part of the reason why I came back.
And I know this is different than like normal spaces where people just let you talk. I'm breaking down your experience as we go along because I think each part of it has a reason, and the point of this is to connect to the people that's watching about their lives, right? So people right now are not spending enough time with their kids, whether they're working, whether they're, so whatever their reason is. A lot of people are not spending a lot of time with their self.
Yeah.
And it's moments like death that make you realize that all of that stuff is not important.
Exactly.
So as you're consoling that lady, I want you to continue, but I just wanted to ask you that question because a lot of people...
you know what's so funny too is that outside of the body, you don't feel separated from anything. So like missing family, that's not an idea that you probably are going to feel once you get to a certain place.
Why do you think that?
Because I feel like any thought that I had, if like I felt like I missed somebody, the satisfaction of them already being with me, I felt it instantly. There was no more.
So when people say, somebody's dad passed away, or your dad is with you, do you believe on some level that's true?
I do. Because when I was, even after I watched this woman for a while that was holding her face, that was sad that I was dying, the guy that was holding the defibrillator pad was also going through it. So I was trying to explain to him because he was blaming himself. I was trying to explain to him, of course he couldn't see me or hear me, that it ain't his fault. That if I decide to stay, it's gonna be my decision. It ain't got nothing to do with what you're trying to do here. You don't blame yourself.
And I like this part right here because we have I lost a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I lost my best friend, and I say to myself, like, I just be like, hey, bro, like, did you have a decision? And what was so good about that decision? I think about my dad or my sister, and it's like, what could be more important than coming back, And it's like, I know people watching this is probably like, lost their mom or whoever. Yeah. And it's like, well, if it's a choice, I don't know if I believe that. Because like, if they had a choice, why wouldn't they come back? So can you explain more about that?
Yeah, I would say for me, the way that choice played out was in what I was doing while I was out of my body. Yeah. I kept checking in on people in the emergency room. So no matter how much I told myself while I was alive that I hated being alive, I hated this place, I hated people, I hated everything. While I was experiencing the most beautiful thing that a person could imagine, I was still checking in on human beings in the emergency room. So the choice for me was in my actions.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
They say love is an action.
So. Yeah. I kept coming back to the emergency room.
So you were more empathetic out your body than you were in your body.
Yeah. I felt everything. I felt everything the people were feeling, and it bothered me. I would have, if they would have all been dancing and singing and when I was dying, I probably would have been happy to leave.
Yeah.
But they were so hurt, that I was on the, gurney being defibrillated and dying that I didn't want to leave with them hurting like that. And that's weird for me because, like I said, I wasn't that nice of a person in terms of feeling, like I wouldn't have allowed, as much as I hated this place, my logical mind would have made me believe that once I'm gone, I'm gone.
So I got a question for you, right? So I know you can't speak for other people, right? And other souls, right?
Nah.
But I'm pretty sure if a lot of people who passed on probably felt that, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And it's the suffering too that people don't know. We were talking about earlier, people hold stuff in.
Yeah.
Like some of the people that we love are suffering beyond our imagination. So sometimes what we think is a selfish choice of them leaving or whatever, it really isn't, man.
Yeah, because
sometimes
my
suffering
friend, he was paralyzed from the neck down, and I said to myself, maybe he stood up and was like, whoa. And maybe he felt like he could help better from the other side.
Yeah.
And I think of different reasons why people, do you believe that sometimes it's just people time too?
Yeah. 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 In so many ways, definitely. But it's really hard. Like once I watched those two people, and this might give more clarity. I watched those two people for a while. The woman that was sad that I was dying, and the guy holding the defibrillator pads that was caught up kind of in the blaming himself and feeling a whole lot. Excuse me. And then I kind of casually looked up, and then I was gone. I could see the ceiling for a split second, and then I was in space or in this void, this dense blackness. And this dense blackness felt like love. It felt like if it was so black and dense that it felt like I could feel it on me. You know what I'm saying? Like velvet almost. And I could see things forming in my periphery. But when I looked directly at it, it would dissipate like smoke, But it felt like everything was in this void. Like everything was there, And eventually I was floating out.
Everything, what you mean?
All ideas, all possibilities, all people, all souls.
On this world, we would call it like a quantum realm type thing.
Like Akasha. People call it the Akashic Records. People call it the noosphere. People call it
just everything.
Everything seemed to be
gumbo
there.
soup of the universe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it felt like that's the source. Like these, and there were more than one, because these black spots in space are blacker than space. Space is black.
Yeah.
But these black spots that
do you think on this side,
it look like black holes?
Do you think on this side, when we look into the universe and we see those black holes, do you think those are it, or you think it's just something else?
I think inside of the body there's an experience of reality, and then outside of the body there's an experience.
It's the same thing,
it's
but
the same thing.
Perspectives.
Two different experiences. Yeah, okay. Because if you are not a physical thing, then
you're not limited to the five senses.
Yeah, either. And then black holes. If you're not matter anymore, then what is black hole going to destroy? What is it going to snatch into? What is it snatching into the hole? If there's no matter there, there's no. So I seem to be able to move through that void, that blackness, with no feeling of gravity from that black hole or that void. It was nothing pulling me. But what was pulling me, and I say this is what people call the light. The light was present for my experience, but it was very far away from me, and it was up and to the right. And was it literal light, like this light? It looked like a sun. It looked like a star, and but it had just like suns and stars, it had a strong gravitational pull. Like if I didn't decide to travel, to move around to where I wanted, so if I would have floated that way. It's
like a river. If you didn't swim upstream, the stream would have took you downstream.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. So whenever I stopped and just kind of floated, I floated towards that light. Okay. But I didn't really want to go. I don't.
Did you have an idea what that was over there?
I thought I was going to be reborn, I think. When I came
that was
back,
the doctor light.
Yeah, like hospital. I was going to be reborn. Well, I actually thought it was like there are some things that I read. I read a lot of stuff since, but it felt like just I was going to be reborn if I went through that life, And I still didn't necessarily want to come back here as a human being, in that way, with forgetting my experience. So I really didn't move towards the light, or I decided that I wasn't going to go towards the light. Other people think differently of the light. It felt like love. It didn't feel like being reborn to me is not a horrible thing. Yeah. I think when you're in, like when people call it the wheel of samsara, or this is Maya, this is an illusion. Like when you're ignorant, everything here can be good or bad. But when you're aware, you can choose to come back and choose to play this game however you want to play it. So it's not punishment.
There's no good
to
or
be
bad.
born.
This is an experience.
And it's perfect to me now. And it took me dying to see it that way, because before everything, I complained about everything. And I didn't do anything to stop, to mitigate the issues that I was complaining about. So for me now, it's like my attention is only on things that I can touch, feel, do something about. I'm not going to put my attention on things across the ocean that I can't impact, because that depletes your creative capacity. If your attention, what I learned outside of my body, and this is what the closest word to describe what I was as I was moving through space, was I was attention.
Was your attention and intention, or both?
I would say both, because I think intention is perhaps
it's the exercising of the attention.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So, but as attention, all I did was look at stuff, and it was like, and every time I said the distance between me and whatever I looked at disappeared, and I understood what it was instantly.
So on this side, these people, that's living regular lives, what advice would you give them about their attention? Do you think it's the most powerful thing they have?
It's the most powerful thing we have, and we give it away so freely to everything.
So social media, timelines, drama.
Yes.
They're giving away their essence?
They're giving away their creative capacity. And people who like to constantly speak about how deeply they're affected by something across the ocean, like Gaza or something like that. But you're not doing nothing about Gaza. All you're doing is triggering other people to make them feel as bad as you feel. Now, let's say everybody feels like you feel and still does nothing about Gaza. What do we have? A whole group of people across the ocean that are depressed and miserable and messed up and incapacitated, basically, over something that they can't do anything about, when their attention could be focused on things to make this realm where they're located a better place, where Gaza could never happen, But by putting your attention on war and fighting and chaos in a place where it's not happening, you increase the probability of it happening where you are. And for me, attention is the creative capacity of a human being. And that's, in my opinion, that's ultimately what we are. We are attention.
And so you're saying our attention and our energy is like a magnet, and that kind of taps into people's concept of attraction.
Yes.
And manifestation, and so on and so on.
Yeah. The visions that I saw as a child is a lot of the death. Now I look at that as a timeline, not the only timeline that exists for humanity. And the second time that I died at age 40, I saw different things, and some of them are beautiful, and it gives me hope that there are timelines where we figure this out.
So you take me back. You in space. You see the holes. Your attention is going to stuff. You see the light, kind of like, I don't want to do that. So what happens from there?
I see this star forming region as I initially come out of that void, that blackness, and I say to myself, like, so this is where stars are born. It was beautiful. I mean, you see the different colors, like the cotton candy colors, almost like red gradiating down into pink, and blue, dark blue down in the light blue, and the white clouds. And then in the middle of them, you see like faint light. So the stars are forming.
Yeah.
And for me, it felt like a very sacred place, because most of the time when I was moving, I was just moving, kind of willy-nilly through space. But when I got to this star forming region, I slowed down, and I didn't go into the area where the stars were actually forming, because it almost felt like a nursery. Like I would be disrupting something sacred happening. And but I watched it, and then I changed my attention, moved to something else. It was an asteroid. And
so you feel like you were literally in space, the space that we see.
It seems like it.
Okay.
It seems like I can place these things, because even the asteroid that I saw just a few years ago, they were talking about this asteroid that comes close to Earth called Bennu.
Yeah.
And they showed images of it, and the asteroid that I saw, it was like an oblong shape, and it had a band that may have went all the way around, but or at least halfway around it. The images that I saw, this Bennu asteroid, it looked like that. The star forming region that I saw looks like the Orion Nebula. The black hole that I feel like I feel like it was Sagittarius C, the black hole that's at the middle of this galaxy. And these things aren't close to each other. But the way that I was traveling through space, it was like, I don't know how much space I covered, But seeing those things, when I came back, I always felt like I could find them in space. Like I'm assuming that those are the things that I saw.
Yeah.
But I always felt like I could confirm it. I could confirm that these are the things that I saw, And some of it is just would be with me remembering more and seeing more details about what I was seeing when I was out of my body. But I think to a certain degree, I was in space,
Wow.
moving through space,
So what's happening at that point where you seeing the light, you not want to go to it? What's happening from there?
The none of the memories of being David exist. That's what I was saying about like missing family and stuff. I didn't even have a reference point because I was in the science and stuff. I didn't even have I remember seeing these star forming regions when I was in science class. None of it was there, but it was an immediate and an instant knowing. Like I knew it immediately what it was. And but the idea of missing somebody, it doesn't exist when you
Is it because
you feel like you're one with everything.
Oh, I was about to ask you that. Do you feel like you're not missing because you are everyone?
You're
and everything?
everyone and everything. Yes.
And that even on a timeline scale, okay, your son may have been 10, for example, but you knew that timeline didn't have nothing to do with him being part of you at some point.
No,
and
exactly.
Yeah, that might be a blink of an eye over there, and you're back with you. So
there was no idea of missing after a certain point. I didn't have even a concept of David anymore. It was just attention. And everything I focused my attention on is where my experience happened. And that's why I say here it's the same thing. Whatever we focus our attention on in this life, it's going to create our experience here. And I put my attention for the bulk of my life on a bunch of miserable stuff, and I had a miserable experience and I blamed everybody but myself for that, But after dying and hearing those phrases that I heard, like, you killed yourself. That was the last phrase I heard when I was above my body is I asked what remains, and soul, spirit, light, and all those words came in. The last phrase I heard was, you killed yourself with your personality. And I knew that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
So, I just want to put it out there. So I'm not saying that you're like some person that has all the answers.
No.
But you had an experience that gave you certain insight. So when terrible things happen, like, kids get killed or, people get tortured and stuff like that, if you have any, what is your thoughts about that, having the experience you had and being back here?
Now it's like, this universe to me is perfect. This life, this planet, everything that we have here is perfect. We have lost an understanding on what it means to be a human being. We have lost an understanding on how to function inside of these bodies, on how to handle thoughts, how to handle feelings, emotions, what spirit is. All of these things, I just think we've lost. Our ancestors had it. And it's still codified in their texts. They explain it. Ancient Greeks, ancient Egyptians, they explain this stuff. But we've turned all of that into religion and cheerleading for my way I see it and shunning the way somebody else sees it.
So separation, you think, is the downfall.
It is.
Not just separation.
And not seeing life as sacred. Seeing ideas as more sacred than life. Like there's things that happen, like milestones and points in our theological recording of history. Like when somebody is able to kill their child in the name of an invisible God, that is a shift from what things were before. Because before we were aligned with life. Everybody was connected to it. Everybody was connected to life in the whole system, like this entire system. That was God. The thing that everything exists in, the thing that everything is God. We made up other ideas of that.
So you think our ego and our ideas or stuff created a separation where it's not necessarily, you would say, evil, but it's the absence of light, you would think?
Yeah, it's like when I was in my angriest and in my most disconnected from life and reality, making up stories about people I didn't know, I would have done violence. I would have easily done violence to
I
people.
think that's most people.
Yeah.
Most people that don't feel connected to themselves or feel shunned or depressed, that's the state. The disconnect is where the darkness happens.
Yeah. And I would have felt justified in doing violence because the stories that I was telling myself almost made me feel like I would have been a hero for doing violence, you know. But it's all storytelling. It's bad storytelling. And for me, that's the beginning of our downfall, is when the stories, for me, life is what's sacred. Like the fact that life even exists here is a mathematical improbability.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, this is not supposed to even be happening, but it is. And that's what's sacred to me, right? But at some point, the gifts that came from being alive or being life, like words, the ability to still tell stories,
connection,
we started weaponizing these gifts. And now to kill somebody,
separate to classism, racism,
to
power.
take a gift that life gave you, like storytelling and words and language, and to use it to kill other people, to me, that was the beginning. We started telling bad stories about others and theys. Now there are no theys.
Do you think the bad stories was to create separation due to insecurities and power struggles? And
like some of this is recorded. And this is what I mean when I say our ancestors loved us. You know, our collective ancestors left us stories on every continent about what happened. And a lot of the times is disagreements leading to wars, leading to people getting exiled. The people who got exiled went somewhere and they had to continue living. They had to have meaning. So they continued to tell the stories, but they shifted the stories to where they were redeemed in the stories, even though they had been exiled in reality.
Yeah.
So now you have to have they did us this way and they put us here.
And then that's the stories that trickle down to the day.
Yes.
Like, okay, racism happened. We're not taking it away. We're not. But at what point are you as an individual going to make a change, right?
That's it.
Okay, yeah, you grew up in the hood, right? You know, your mom was on crack. But what point of individual, you? So it all goes back to the power that an individual has. And I think one of the biggest things that I see in people is they don't see themselves as a fragment of God. They see themselves as a little old me. I'm nothing. I don't have no money. I don't have no resources. And one of the points of this conversation was to bring it full circle for people to just open their mind to what they are outside of what they think they are.
Yeah, you're sacred. Every person to me is sacred. And some of the things that solidified are like things that I started getting into after I came back from the second experience is
tell me how like the segue from that space back into the body happened.
Oh yeah, I kept looking back into the emergency room trying to tell the lady that I'm experiencing some beautiful stuff.
Oh, you're like, hold on, I got something to tell you.
So I kept coming back to her, and like I'm literally in her face, like trying to tell her that this is beautiful. Stop feeling.
Who is that lady though?
I don't know. When I was out of my body, she appeared to look like my aunt, but when I came back, it was a young lady that just worked in the hospital. I didn't know her. You know what I'm saying? But I think that her appearing to look like my aunt is what may have kept my attention and my compassion and all of that energy back here, because I love my mom's twin sister.
And I think that's similar to when people have experiences and they say Buddha or Jesus. I think whatever has to get their attention for them to attract to it, whether it's showing up as Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad. And I think that's like embedded in what's going to make you, motivate you to, you know.
That's why if you look at a gazillion NDE stories, you're going to see people's personal experience correlate
to their life.
Yeah, their attention creates some of it.
So if you could tell me about when you got back in your body, like what was your immediate things the days after? And then I'll go into some questions I have and some other people had too from Instagram.
Okay. When I got back in my body, well, this is something that I noticed as I was looking up at the light and I was looking back into the emergency room. My attention was moving through me, and I noticed that I was a big orb of light. And that's all I was. It was an orb of light. And I did that like multiple times just to experience that, because it was beautiful to just to see, myself glowing like that as I'm moving my attention back and forth.
Oh, wow.
So one time I did it and I went back into the emergency room. That's when they resuscitated me. I was going back to talk to the lady or try to explain to the lady that this is beautiful. And I was upset. My first emotion
How did your body look to you? Did it look foreign to you? Like, I don't know who that is. Or did it look like
What was so funny is that I don't know if it was because the people were all around me and I couldn't really see all of my body, but I didn't pay attention to my body very much at all.
Didn't care much about it?
I didn't seem to really care, honestly. Once I left my body, I think what I was experiencing was so powerful and beautiful that it was like, I didn't really care. I didn't look. I think I looked and saw that I couldn't really see my face and couldn't see much because people were all around. I never looked really back. I don't think I ever looked back at my body after initial seeing that I couldn't see much because of the people around me. But when I came back and they resuscitated me, the first thing I blurted out was, "Are you okay?" And I was trying to find a woman that was holding her face. And I did like that. And I saw her. But and she wasn't my aunt. She was a young lady that just probably worked at the hospital, you know.
Did she seem distressed? Like,
I didn't see much after that because I think they pushed me back. And then I asked the guy holding the defibrillator pads, "Are you okay?" And then he cut me off.
Probably like, "Are you okay?"
That's exactly what he said. He said, wait, "Are you okay?" And then somebody from the right side, I heard a voice say, "You didn't feel that?" And I think they were talking about the shocks. And I was about to say, "Feel what?" But I just looked down and I saw this like a square gel pad on my chest that had 2 indentions in it that were the size of the defibrillator pads. And that's when my human mind was like, "Oh, you really were dead." I caught up. My mind caught up. But another thing, like I said, when I first woke me up, I was like, "Damn, they really woke me up." Like, I was upset that they woke me up initially. But the first thing I said was, "Are you okay?" And I started asking people if they were okay. Another weird thing that happened was when I laid back, there was this person that was looking at me like this close. And I don't know if he was a real person or a spirit. I don't know what he was, but he looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
Like a white guy?
White dude with a little bushy hair on his face. And he had his eyes like real wide. And he looked at me and was like, "What did you see?" And I didn't have a whole lot of energy, but I looked back at him and I raised my eyebrows the same way he did. I said, "Blackness." And I thought that was funny as hell because I wanted to explain more than just blackness, but I didn't have the energy to. But I just said blackness with the same vibe he had, and I left it alone. And I think I passed out, fell asleep after that.
Oh, wow.
That was hilarious to me.
Yo, that's funny. So I might ask some questions that I got. You covered a lot of it, so that's good. What role do you think your death, our death as we know it, plays in those living now? So somebody that's living, right, that's hearing the story, what can they learn from this experience? Or what should they be able to take away from this that's going to help their life?
For one, I think that we should somehow integrate that there is no such thing as death. You are in a physical body or you're not, but you still have experience, whether you're in a physical body or you're not, and we don't lose people.
I think that's big. So we don't lose people.
Nah, we don't lose people because when that woman was sad that I was dying, I could feel her and I could see her no matter where I was traveling in space. I could still see that woman.
But what about the person that in this form don't feel you?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that has to do with our cultures. We're not as we don't practice ancestral traditions.
I see what you're saying.
The way that we used to.
Do you think it's a matter of not being on a certain frequency? Is what I'm saying.
Perhaps, but our ancestors also practiced traditions that included the idea that we don't die.
Okay,
you understand what I'm saying? Like they communicate. They had altars and shrines to dead family members. Like their worldview includes the reality that there's no such thing as death, whereas we don't. We don't have that type of. Most people don't. Many people don't. So, but if we were to and somehow integrate that idea that there is no such thing as death, and we've seen enough. There's so many near-death experiences that kind of, to me, make it kind of clear that something happens after you die. Whatever you want to say it is, or however you want to believe in it, something does happen. There's enough people, and then now you got scientists, you got neuroscientists, you got everybody now talking about it. And I'm trying to understand it. And I think that just accepting that death is not the end of anything and having that become like a fixture in our thought would change everything. We would not. I don't think we would ever feel sad when somebody passes. Like for me now, when somebody passes, I just think about how amazing my experience was just in the 5-6 minutes I was gone, 4 or 5 minutes I was gone. And I just think about, wow, I wonder what they're experiencing. Like, wow.
So I'm looking at these questions. You answered a lot of these questions already, right? But one of the things that I feel like you kind of answered, but I guess want a clear answer on, like, why did you decide to come back?
Honestly,
do you feel like you decided to come back as you, or you feel like a higher power kind of nudged you on that?
I think the choice was in where my attention was. I was experiencing things that I thought were amazing and that I did never want to stop. But somehow my attention kept coming back to the people that were suffering through my death.
Mm-hmm.
So I shared some of that part early on an app, Clubhouse. And this man said, oh, you had a Guan Yin experience. I didn't know much about Guan Yin. But Guan Yin is like the goddess of compassion. And she ascended. And then as she was ascending and leaving Earth, she heard the cries of humanity. And it bothered her to the point where she came back and said, I'll never leave until we all figure it out. We all, ascend. And that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like I was very happy to experience what I was experiencing. But I was also, bothered by the fact that people were sad and confused about what was happening to me, and I wanted them to understand it. And I think that the choice was in where my attention was. My attention kept coming back to try to explain to people in the emergency room what was happening. And so the choice seems to be there.
Do you feel like on the other side, if you decided to move on, do you feel like you still could affect it and had influence and a connection with your son or other people while they were still living here?
I do think so. And I honestly felt like I thought about just the amount of movement that I was doing, just traveling through space. In my mind, I felt like I could have found Earth again. And whether it was being born or just coming back as the awareness that I was, that I could have influenced, you
could have been like a guardian or like something.
I felt like that.
Yeah, because the reason I asked that, we have people with sons, daughters, fathers, friends, and I hear a lot of stories from people, and they're sad, and they don't understand. I mean, some of it is selfish, and I'm selfish myself. Yeah, I have a selfishness. I want my sister back for these reasons, right? Yeah. And I think we all have to be accountable for that. Yeah. And some of it is guilt. Oh, I didn't spend enough time. I wish we didn't argue. I wish we didn't fall out. Right? Cool. But that's all human stuff, right? Yeah. And we have to be accountable and be able to process that. But outside of that, we also have to be open-minded and say to ourselves, is it the best for them? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we all have our free wills, right? And is it the best for them and their decision for us as well? Like maybe somebody, like I said, maybe my friend feels like he could work better on the other side than he could here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also, man, the same way that I mentioned, like how a lot of ancient traditions include like ancestral reverence, if you ask them to show you proof that they are not.
I'm about to get into that too.
They will. Like I've had weird things happen, and it's just a matter of whether you pay attention to it or not.
And because these things happen, right?
Yeah, my friend passed, and I started having an out loud conversation with him, apologizing for some of the misunderstandings that we had, hoping that he was in a better place, and pretty much asserting that I know he was in a better place. That I know that even these apologies don't matter where he's at, that we've.
It was more so for you, right?
Yeah. And it was nighttime where I live, and I had never seen a hummingbird at all in that area where I live. I've never seen one in my house, near my house at all. And I've never seen one at nighttime. I had my garage cracked. I was sitting in the garage, at the door of the garage. A hummingbird flew into my garage. It hovered there for a second. And then it flew out as soon as I stopped talking to him.
Yes, like and I can tell you millions of examples, right, of how that happened with me. My sister, after I had my kidney stone, I was thinking about my friend, right? When we was in ninth grade, we said we were gonna make a studio called Room 9 because we was in a class called Room 9. He ended up passing away. I got a kidney stone, right? I'm thinking I'm about to die, right? So I'm there by myself. I call, my family. They like, I'm like, yo, doctor, what room I'm in? What room I'm in? They need to know. He like, oh, you in room 9. I'm like, oh, really? So look, after I go to the hospital, I say, okay, well, that might be a little sign, but it could be a coincidence. I said, listen, I need to know that my dad and my sister still exist. Like, I need to know. So I want to sign like ASAP. So when I went to my outpatient appointment, they gave me a bracelet. My real name is Vincent. The bracelet said Vincent. That's my dad's name. I said, oh, that's a common mistake. Like, whatever. So my sister, I haven't been to her house at this time in over like 13 years. And the last time I was there, we took a picture. It was under a doorway. That's the last time I've been at that house. So I'm texting my friend. I'm trying to buy some food stamps because money, like you trying, do what you gotta do. Like whatever, it is what it is. Let's keep it real. So I'm like, all right, where you at? She sent me the address. I ain't pay attention to the address. I just click directions. I get there. I'm on a block. I'm like, damn, this is like my sister's block. I get there. I get to the house. I'm like, damn, this is kind of crazy coincidence. I mean, this is her house.
Yeah.
But whatever. She used to live on the 3rd floor. So I'm like, yo, I'm outside. Where you at? She like, oh, the door open. Come upstairs. I'm on the 3rd floor. I'm like, all right, I get to the 3rd floor. She's standing right where we took the picture at, holding the card. Like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
I asked for this today.
Yeah.
So, like, that's just one example.
No, that's how it works. That's how it works. But you have to pay attention, and be open.
I want to say this, too, because I heard somebody talk about another experience where they passed and they seen lights like you did.
Yeah.
They said they saw every person they ever interacted with in their life, right? And they said the people that had the brightest lights were their family because they spent the most time and most love, right? And they said the people who had the lower lights wasn't that their lights were less quality, but it was a representation of how much attention and love they showed that person, right? So let's say that it was, quality water, right? It wasn't that the quality was of that dimmer light. Yeah. It's just that they didn't spend enough time or attention. No,
that makes sense to me.
They talking about the mailman.
So that makes sense to me.
So they said when they came back, they wanted to make sure every interaction, whether it was with the customer here or somebody on the phone, it was just a present interaction. They were listening to listen, not listening to talk. Like, sometimes you get somebody talking, you're like, I can't wait to talk. I got to see what I have to say. It's like, no, let me actually listen and be present. And then that creates the value and the light in that relationship. So I bring that up to say, because I was at Target, I was checking out, and I like to ask people how they doing. Yeah. So you get the hey, how you doing? I'm good. I'm like, no, bro. How you doing?
Yeah.
You're like, man, I'm tired, man. I don't go to sleep. I take care of my mom. She's sick. She's in hospice. I'm like, oh, wow. He said, nobody really asked me how I'm doing for real. Yeah. I'm like, well, he like, she took care of me. I want to take care of her. I said, man, I know she's really proud of you for that. She may not remember, but she appreciates that, right? Yeah. Just being me, because I know I appreciate that, right? Yeah. So I'm just trying to be present. So I'm practicing my presence by bringing him present. I don't know this dude.
Yeah, yeah.
But, that was it. That was it. It wasn't nothing.
You know what's so funny is that I had a very similar realization. It was internal. I was thinking about, I was at work and I was just getting back from work and I was like winding down, at home. And I was like, there's a level of on that I can have at work that when I get home, I'm trying to wind it down. Mm-hmm. And I said it's for me to be effective in both places. It has to be a wind down. It can't be I'm on here and hey, how can I help you today? Yeah. At work, or being really friendly and energetic at work and then come home and I'm shutting off completely. It has to be a wind down. An actual, right? Yeah. So that thought is like that being on for everybody, especially the people that matter the most, like being on for them.
Yeah, being present. And I wanted to end with this because I want to talk about how this connects to people's lives, make them live a more quality life, right? So I seen that guy again a couple of weeks later and I asked him, hey, how your mom doing? He's like, oh, she passed. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And he was like, well, at the funeral, I thought about you. And he said, I really appreciate that moment you took with me. And it made me feel proud because I never felt proud. Wow. And I say that to say that, like, people watching this, I want to make sure that y'all take this opportunity to reevaluate your life and live for what you feel like is important and explore and open your mind. You know what I mean? So I'm going to end with that. Yeah. And I want to thank you for coming, man. I appreciate it. Anything you want to tell people, like, as far as how to get in touch with you if they want more questions?
I'm still slow motion on websites and all this stuff. But Instagram is David A Williamson 731.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure I put it in the information too. Yeah, so.
But yeah, I'm trying to have a normal life for a little while, like be happy and work and have a normal life for a while. So.
Well, man, listen, I appreciate you coming.
Yes, indeed.
And thanks, man. Make sure y'all check out this episode. Share it with people. It's the Matchbook Podcast. Peace.
That gold is to bring down. The crabs in the bucket. I grab and I bucket for anyone trying to bring me down. I'm raising my feet now. I doubled and tripled the double. Got enough on the beats and out of the streets to keep them from getting in trouble. Cause most is glued to the game. With names that's glued to the fame. And frames that's glued to the shirts. RIP soldiers that move to the dirt. A lane in my own. My crib in my name and I own. Think about changing it too.
Exclusively on ARSINmovement.com.